Hello, this is Crossing Bridges Talk Show. I'm your host, Larry Montgomery Sr. This is my co-host, William. Introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm William Lamont Montgomery. It's a pleasure to be here today.
I'm William Montgomery. This is cool. The other day, I was using my business voice.
Oh, yes, very much so.
Yeah. That's okay. You get an opportunity to show that you can speak the language clearly.
Yeah.
So this week, a couple of things we want to talk about. First, I want to clarify a statement I made last week when we were talking about tithing in the church. And I have a little statement here from one of my many Christian guides. It's called IHS, The Case for Tithing in the Church. Okay. And it's on Amazon, so you can pick it up there. I think it's like you get the ebook for $1.25 or something like that there. But anyway, let me get to it. I have it right here. Okay, what is the difference between tithing and offerings? The answer: when trying to distinguish between tithes and offerings, it is important first to understand the concept of tithing. Christians today often think that what they give to their local church is a tithe, when in reality, it is an offering. Christian tithing is a misnomer because Christians are under no obligation to fulfill the command to tithe as given to the Israelites as part of the Mosaic law. The tithe was a requirement of the law in which all Israelites were to give 10% of everything they earned and grew to the tabernacle or the temple. And you find that in Leviticus 27 and 30 and Numbers 18 and 26 and Deuteronomy 14:24. And there's another one, but let me go on. In fact, the Old Testament law required multiple tithes, which would have pushed the total to around 23.3%, not the 10%, which is generally considered the tithe amount today. You see, and I made that point. I don't know if I made it clearly before, but here it is. The New Testament, which is what we're in now, nowhere commands or even recommends that Christians submit to a legalistic tithe system. Paul states that believers should set aside a portion of their income as an offering. Set aside a portion of your income as an offering, but this is not a tithe. And we look to 1 Corinthians 16, 1 and 2 for that. God expected the Israelites to honor him by giving the first fruits of what he gave to them. Leviticus 27 and 30 states, and all the tithes of the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the tree, is the Lord's. It is holy unto the Lord. Giving 10% tithe was commanded of the Israelites and was therefore an obligation. When Christ died on the cross, he fulfilled the requirements of the law and made the mandatory 10% tithe obsolete. To continue to insist that it is still in effect is to nullify, at least in part, the sacrifice of Christ and return to the idea of justification by works and law keeping. Now, that whole thing about justification and laws, you really have to kind of be a real active Christian to get a hold of all of that. But trust me, it's good. The first fruits offering found its fulfillment in Jesus, but Christ has indeed been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. As offering, no, an offering is that which is freely given by Christians to the work of the Lord, the local church, and or ministries and missions. But offerings are far more than simply the check we write on Sunday. We are to offer much more to God than our monetary resources. Romans 12:1 exhorts us to offer our bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God as part of our worship. Now, when you say offering your body, that means what? Doing work, and also it would come down to, what are you doing with your body? If you're the kind of person that runs around and drinks a lot or does drugs or whatever, that's not something that's godly. So you're abusing your body. You can't offer. I mean, it's like saying, "Look, I got a glass here. You want some water?" And the glass is dirty. You gonna drink that water out of that glass? No. So you want to keep that clean. Okay, so that we can go on about that another time. Romans 6:13 gives the reason for offering ourselves, because we are those who have been brought from death to life. And as such, we are to offer the parts of your body to him as instruments of righteousness. God is not nearly as interested in our monetary offerings as he is our submission and obedience. Whole conversation on that. I'll get there. So now, coming to a close. The truth is that he doesn't need our resources to accomplish his plans and purposes. After all, he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, Psalms 50:10, and needs nothing from us. What he desires, however, and what he values is the heart that overflows with gratitude and thanksgiving to God, who saved us who saved us, and who gives us all things, knowing our needs before we even ask. Matthew 6:8. Such a heart gives generously, willingly, and cheerfully in response to the love and grace that abounds in Christ. 2 Corinthians 9:6-18. So I'm gonna leave it right there. Okay. So I think that makes it clear as to, when we use the word tithe, we understand kind of in our heads what it means to give to the church. But when we really understand the word, no, we're not obligated to tithe anymore. That was the Old Testament. The New Testament talks about offerings and gifts. It's from your heart. You come to church and you make $100 a week. If you're living by the tithe, the law, you would say, I got to put in $10. That's 10%. But what God is saying to you now under the New Testament, if you come to church and you want to give what is on your heart to give. You may want to give the whole 100. You may say, "Oh, and I got to pay my rent this week. My rent is $99. I only got $1 left. I want to give that." That's not 10%, that's 1%. And that's okay, because you gave it from the heart. The parable about the widow's mite. The widow had she only had coins. Everybody else in the synagogue was giving big check, lumps of sums of money and all that kind of stuff. And she just gave what she had, and God blessed her. I'm not going to go into the parable because I don't remember all of it. But the point is, that's a part of what that means. And she was blessed, blessed more than those who had so much more to give, who stood around and boasted about, well, I got, I'm going to give $1,000 or whatever, this week. You got it like that. That's good for you. He didn't ask you to account for it. He didn't ask you to market it, or to advertise the fact that you gave that much. Whole nother conversation about being a Christian. Okay, you give from your heart what you can, and he will bless you. He will bless it and bless you. And that's a good thing. Okay, so enough of that. Had any questions on that? You okay?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Okay, good. Okay. So before I go into the second part of my conversation, which was on 3 spiritual laws, I wanted to just, take a moment to talk a little bit about some of the things that's been happening. I'm going to be turning years old soon.
I mean, with that,
And so things were really way different when I came along.
Mm.
And to wake up the other day and hear about the shooting
Mm.
in Arizona, I forget which community it was in. Again, on the heels of what happened, I think it was in Florida the other week when those Asian folks had been targeted in the spas. I mean, this is just nuts. I mean, how do you get up one morning and say, "Look, I'm going to take my gun, I'm going to go down to a Piggly Wiggly and shoot it up. I'm going to go down to the Stop and Shop and shoot it up. I'm going to go down to the Wall Bounds and shoot it up, whatever." And there's no thing. Now, when we were protesting with Black Lives Matter, you got up and you wanted to go out and be involved and, walk, your, whatever. And you're subject to getting beat down and run over by a police car. So how does that work? I'm out here with a sign saying Black Lives Matter because I want the politicians to see that I'm in support of that. And I'm getting run over and beat down by cops and cars. But this fool gets up in the morning, gets his AK-15, AK-47, whatever one he had, and goes down and shoot, 10 people and a cop. They buying this boy a daggone Big Mac, taking him to the police station. I mean, it just, we have to be clear on the fact that America has some issues that needs to be dealt with, and if it's going to run strictly across race, and I've said this before, that's a problem. Doesn't make any sense, never made any sense, but it's a problem, and it's real. It's real. Because I know those people in Arizona didn't get up that morning and say, well, let me go to the store early because I know some fool's going to come along and try to shoot me. Did you have a comment, or you just let me rant and rave all
I'll let you rant and rave. But yeah, I there's been several shootings in the past couple weeks. All tragic. Anytime a life is lost, or anytime somebody's wounded from somebody being foolish, it's tragic because it's a traumatizing situation. So yeah, it is a problem. It it seems to happen more and more frequently. But I have my conspiracy theories. I think that sometimes stuff like that is going on and we never hear about it. But then at times it's very well publicized, and it's like, well, okay, if there was a shooting in Chicago where 8 people died, how come that's not on the front page of the news? Because I mean, if 8 people died from one person being shot in one state and 8 people died in another state, I mean, they're both tragic, so they both should have the same amount of coverage. But it's sad that nobody cares about Chicago.
Well, Chicago, I hate to say it, man, but that's just out of hand. Because all we would ever talk about is the tragedies that are going on in Chicago. And personally, I'm at the age now where I can choose to look at the news and not look at the news because I've had enough. Some people, they have to look at the news all the time because they're trying to figure out what's going on. And so to be stuck in Chicago, a place where I've only been through once, and it was so cold there, I would never go back.
Mm.
So, I'm not a Chicago fan, but for
Mhm.
those who live there, yeah, I can certainly understand and appreciate that they want to live life and not fear
Mhm.
losing their life. But matter of fact, there was a post I put up the other day, which was interesting. It was a little cartoon or whatever. Someone had sent it. They were making the point that gun laws don't really work. And their point was the people in Maine who have uh, no gun laws, basically, you could carry uh, hidden, whatever, concealed carry or whatever. They got no problems with guns. People in Chicago, where you got to supposedly follow all these laws, everybody's getting shot.
Mhm.
So, and some people on my feed, had a problem with it. Oh, but Chicago's a real city. It's got people compared to all those in Maine. Is that the point wasn't about the number of people. The point was the fact that the law doesn't work. And I'm not saying laws don't work. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to work if it's not enforced.
Yeah.
And if it's a bad law, no matter how much you enforce it, it's still a bad law.
Mhm.
But the only point I would make out of this whole thing, 2 points. First off, is carrying a AK-47 or AR-15 or whatever in a non-combat zone makes absolutely no sense. You can't hunt with it. I mean, yeah, you can kill. You ain't hunting, because it's not even a fair opportunity for the animal, And if anybody jumps on you or jumps out or tries to attack you, your bullet is more likely going to go through 2 or 3 people before it stops. So what was the point? So if we want to start talking about effective gun laws, just tell the manufacturers, you can manufacture all of the AK-47s and AR-15s you want, but you can't sell not one of them in this country. And you better not make any bullets for them. Now what? Okay, so we don't have the assault weapons on the streets. And we talk about the other laws, background check.
Actually, I disagree with that because when you take that away, it's not going to take away the black market. I mean, a lot of these people that are killing people
against the law. So
yeah,
we know.
yeah.
So
my thing is that the laws only work on law-abiding citizens.
True.
Those people out there that don't care about the law, they're gonna be like, "Oh, you giving up all your guns? Oh, well, there's nobody to combat me, and I can go take over a whole city block and do whatever I want." And that's, there's people feel one way or the other about it. It's like you don't want to limit people's ability to defend themselves because you got some people that say there's no reason for the police. Well, if there's no reason for the police, then there's more reason for me to defend myself. If the police are better and not abusing their power, then you can come to me and say, well, yeah, we don't need to have guns for protection because the police are doing their job effectively, taking care. Doesn't matter what your race is, what location you live in, whether you're rich, poor, whatever, they're going to provide the same service and with the same, oversight, no matter where you at. Then some people will probably feel more comfortable with saying, okay, well, I don't need it because I'm being protected by professionals. And when people say that the police are not doing their job, it's going to make people want to defend themselves even more. So it's like you have this constant back and forth, like, well, the police are bad. Well, I got to defend myself. Well, you can't defend yourself. You depend on the police. Well, you tell me the police are bad and you tell me I can't defend myself. I'm confused. Which one is it?
Well, I would go on. I'm sorry.
No. I wasn't asking you per se, but I'm just saying, like, for people to think about, because we have to fix the situation. People are dying. That's a problem. Cops are messing up. That's a problem. A lot of times these cops feel empowered because the powers that are looking over them are letting stuff slide. You know, if you're a manager in any field, if the people under you are messing up, it's your job to, hey, you're messing up. You got 2 strikes. Third time, you're gone. You know, and when you have politicians or what's that called? Unions that, you know, fight tooth and nail to keep these people employed. It's like, who's going to hold them, you know, who hold their feet to the flame? It's us citizens. We're like, hey, wait, hold up. How many write-ups this person had in the last year? 3 police brutality. Now he need to go. I don't care what the unions say. I don't care what, you know, the mayor say. Mayor, if you're not going to have this guy fired or this lady fired, then you're going to get fired. We're not going to reelect you. And it's like the people have to get involved. I mean, a lot of this information, if we're aware of it, we need to call it what it is. If we're not aware of it and there's people that are hiding this stuff, we need to, hey, if you're in the newspaper and you're supposed to be reporting this and you're not reporting it, then guess what? I'm not going to patronize your newspaper. I'm not going to patronize your news station. I'm not, because you're in a sense putting my life in jeopardy, because what I don't know can kill me. Sorry.
Well, my point is this. I understand what you're saying, and most of it I agree with. The other part I'm not going to talk about. But anyway, my point is this. The issue about guns is something that, you know, in a society, it has to be addressed. Okay. We have police. One of the things that people do not understand, and that is a part of the problem, is that we are only willing to pay so much for protection. Why would I let if my taxes are, just say today, $1,000 a year that goes towards all the government services, and of that $1,000, $500 of it goes to law enforcement, whether it be prosecutors, ticket agents, you know, or policemen. $500, half of my money is going there. If I wanted total protection from the police department, I might have to pay another $1,000 to get that. Not even talking about whether it's realistic, but just say I wanted it, if we could get it. I'm already paying the $5,000. Now you want me to pay $1,000 more. So I'm up to $2,000 a year, twice as much money to get what we think would be total protection. So we don't want to do that, which is fine. They have a formula that they use. Number of people, certain percentage of that money is put into law enforcement. And that's where they determine how many officers they can have on the street. Those officers that they have on the street, they have another formula. I mean, the officers that they have another formula. High crime areas, this portion goes there. Low crime areas, this portion goes over there. Makes sense. I understand that. So if I'm not willing to pay more money, I shouldn't sit here and complain about the fact that I don't have enough cops out there to keep me safe. So my solution is, I got my own gun. Cop comes, great. Cop late, I got a solution. Cop don't show up, I took care of it. Okay.
Yeah.
The point that we're having right now at this moment is my gun. Do I need a 38 or an AR-15? Most people will say, well, worst case scenario, 38 will work. AR-15, that's a whole nother zip code. And therein lies the problem, because most people in most cities, most crimes with guns are not necessarily committed by Black people. People who buy tanks for recreation, people who buy AR-15s for recreation, are most likely white. Okay, fine. Problem is, they're on the street. So you don't see any brothers getting up 6 o'clock in the morning, getting a 38, going out to the Piggly Wiggly or the Warbounds and shooting it up. Okay. But we do have white folk that'll get up and do that. So one solution, that's all I'm offering, one solution. Stop the manufacture of bullets and weapons of mass, of combat grade weapons. You get an AR-15, that means your behind is on a boat, on a plane, on a battlefield somewhere else, not here in the U.S. And if you have to have one over here, we all got a problem. So it don't matter what the law say. Okay.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that'll fix the problem because the cops are using those same weapons that you just said.
That's another problem.
You probably shouldn't have.
They need that for. I mean,
because the criminals have those weapons.
No, see, the cops, a part of the strategy is to surprise and overwhelm. Okay? Now, 10 guys coming up on your doorway with Glocks is one thing. 8 guys with Glocks and 2 guys with AR-15s, when is enough enough? I mean, when is enough enough? Because if you got to unload that bad boy, you had no intention of bringing them back alive anyway. Okay, so that's a problem too. And but okay, yeah, it was a gang of them, and they all had guns and all that. Okay, not the norm. That's all. Not the norm. Unusual, yes, not the norm.
The thing is, you never know what you want to be facing. And the long rifle is for pretty much long distance and accuracy. So, I mean, you were in the military. I was in the military. They give the soldiers the M16s. The officers got the handguns. When they tell you to shoot at a 300-meter target, you're not going to shoot at a 300-meter target with a handgun because it's not accurate. And even some people have handguns. They can't hit something within 25 feet of themselves. So the reason why the long gun is there is for accuracy,
Yeah, but and I understand your point. I don't have a problem with your point. But realistically here in the urban center, or in the city limits, you have a gun that's going to shoot 300 yards. Unnecessary. Really
I disagree, because if you have to post up on a building, like if somebody's robbing a bank and they have to post somebody up on the opposite building, so because you can't shoot straight at them, you got cars, you got this, that, and the other, you got to get an angle on them. Handgun from the top of a building is not going to be effective. I mean, it's all about.
Okay, under special circumstances, the law enforcement, and I'm not arguing that part, law enforcement, yeah, okay, fine. But for Joe Blow walking around to the corner deli with the AR strapped to his back just because he has the right to carry a weapon, that makes absolutely no sense. None. And the thing is that you pull something like that out and use it, or if you don't pull it out, you're just walking around carrying it, and somebody hits you upside your head and takes it from you. Now what? What you going to say? Oh, they should have took my gun? What were you not showing it for? What were you going to do with it? So go with your suit? Come on. But anyway, we want to start somewhere. They're talking about background checks. Background checks are a waste of time, because there's still nuts out there who have licenses to carry guns. You weren't nutty when you got the license, but you got nutty the day after you got your gun. So, it's just.
The thing is, we can't demonize the law-abiding citizen, because most of the people that are criminals, They're not doing a background check. They're not doing a psych eval. They're not doing anything. So all you're going to do is limit the law-abiding citizen who goes through these things from getting something that could protect them, whether it's a handgun, whether it's a whatever they want you to register, and they can change the dynamic of whatever it is to say, oh well, you got a handgun that holds 5 rounds. That's an assault weapon. You know, the outline, how they outline. I mean, there was somebody that, you know, very famous right now that said you only need 1 bullet. You know, and I'm like, but then they were saying all you have to do is fire off one of the shots in your double barrel shotgun. It's like, really, that's illegal to let off a shot as a warning shot within city limits. But right now they're holding the highest office of the land, but they're saying all you need is 1. So if you fire that 1 shot out that double barrel, okay, Miles, let me load that. Come on. I mean, it's like, you never know what you're going to need till you need it. And it's better to have and not need than to need and not have. Because just like you want to protect yourself, you're saying, well, dang, I could have had a gun. Now I'm surrounded by a gang of people. I ain't got no gun. I got 1 bullet, but there's like 30 of them. What am I going to do? Well, whatever they tell me to do, because they outnumber me. But, you know, you never know. So it's better to have and not need.
I would think there's 30 of them. I got 1 bullet. I'm going to hit the one who's in charge. We'll see what the rest of them do.
I mean, but if they know you only got 1 bullet, because
I got 1 bullet now, and I got the one that's in charge, I'm going to take his gun. Now I got another gun. But anyway, I got your point.
It has to be figured out. We have to figure it out because, like I said, it's not hard. Guns are made out of metal detectors. Hey, you know.
The thing is, when you're, I don't care how many people are in the group that's coming after you. Each and every one of them, except for one, probably the leader, in the back of their mind, they're concerned, well, you know, I could get hurt. You know? And so you got that going on for you. You pick out the leader. Yeah. What you going to lead when you're dead?
But then you always got somebody that's willing to take the leader spot, and you just gave him a new reason to.
Well, see, see what happens when the leader gets killed. Everybody go back and huddle, and we got to appoint and acknowledge who's the new leader, and then we come back. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, what my
in
point,
the movies that works.
my point is, you have a right to have a gun. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You got a gun. You know,
use it wisely.
When people realize that guy next to me may have a gun too. Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
You know, excuse me, ma'am. You know, and not jump out there and start acting a complete fool because you don't have a gun, but you think you all that. You know, and yeah, they could be a criminal. We don't know. That's why we have law enforcement people to catch the criminals. No, we don't want to. But people think differently when they know the likelihood of you having one is just as great as them having theirs too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and one admin point. I'm not an admin point, but one history point. Back in the days, they asked some people. I think it was somebody in Russia, one of the government. It was like, you know, y'all ever thought about invading America? It was like, no, those people have too many guns. So when our enemies know that people have the ability to defend and protect themselves and their country, it's kind of a protective measure too.
yeah.
But once you take that away from the citizens, it's like, we can run right through them because they ain't got nothing.
Right. And that's true. But the question is because we do have a lot of mentally ill people. And I think that eventually, and I'm not saying way off into the future. I'm talking within the next 20 to 50 years. People are going to start being held accountable for the ones that they know are mentally ill.
Yeah. I mean, case in point.
I'm saying you get up in the morning and no one knew you was crazy.
But, and that's another thing that needs to be dealt with too, because you'll have somebody that's, well, we'll say mentally ill, that will commit a crime, and then they use that as a defense. We probably need to come up with laws that don't incentivize people using that as a defense. If you are of that, persuasion, then you need to get help before you commit, an atrocity. But if you do, hey, look, I don't think that should be a defense, because, like I said, if somebody lost their life in prison, hey, they'll be taken care of. Maybe not, to the best of ability, but
they took a life, they should give up a life.
Yeah.
You think it's okay? Well, we think it's okay too.
I mean, or if they don't think it's okay, they just did it because look, that insanity plea, a lot of people have lost their lives, and a lot of people got on because, oh yeah, I'm crazy, and you're like, oh well, yeah, he's crazy, and 6 months later he's out of the the halfway house or whatever, and he's back on the block, making money or whatever, and running a Fortune 500 company.
Huh? As long as he's on his meds.
Yeah,
but, that's what company be dealt with, and maybe just like driver's license, where you got to get it renewed every so often. You got to get a mental health license. Let's say just tie it to the driver's license, so at least we can limit these fools from being able to travel too far with their guns. You can't get a license because you're crazy. I ain't gonna put you in jail, but you need to see somebody. Whatever. But anyway.
Because a car can be just as bad as a weapon too. I mean, you can take out 20, 30 people with a car.
Yeah. So if you're mentally unstable, they don't have a mental competency test when you take your driver's license or when you renew it. They don't ask you any of those questions. Are you still crazy? I got over it. But sooner or later, because things have changed and they keep changing, man. It's just, some of it don't make no sense. And we got these politicians that sit there and, back and forth. I like to say, what are we paying you to do? To sit up here and figure out how to waste time until election time?
I mean, that's pretty much what they do.
You should be trying to pass, and the things you should be trying to get done for the people you represent. Up here acting foolish because you can. Because you can.
Well, and now I have another point about when you said if you pay $1,000 in taxes, 500 might go to law enforcement. Well, if you look at how much money we send to other countries, there's more than enough money that the government receives from the taxes that we already pay to adequately pay law enforcement and have enough on the streets to and have enough training. So them saying that they need to get more money is just a downright lie. It's a slap in the face, because it's like the politicians have their security. Hands down, they're not going to leave home without it. They live at home with it, and we pay them. How come we can't get adequate protection by competent cops? I mean, it's not hard to do. It's just they don't care. It's like, oh, well, yeah, we're going to we need the money, we need the funds. Well, if you send in 10, 20 billion to another country for them to study, the mating habits of the floating ostrich, that might help here,
People can make a decent case for foreign aid. One of the reasons for foreign aid is we sent you some money so you could buy stuff and stay over there.
Well, I mean, I'm not talking about security money. Like, okay, well, you're an ally and you need defense money for protecting your people, so that, that I'm not talking about that. That's important. But there's money that goes to other stuff that really ain't going to help nobody but some particular group or whatever. And I'm like, we need coronavirus vaccines and studies and this, that, and the other, but you're sending money overseas, but you can't pay your people the 2,000 that was promised. I'm like, well, why are you still sending money over there? Because this is for the people here in the States to survive. But
Well,
you're sending our tax money over there, and it's not for defense money.
There was a post that keeps going around about Mitch McConnell.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he voted 6 times for a pay increase and 15 times to stop the living wage increase. Mm-hmm. And so you sit there and you say, well, the gall, I mean, I don't care what party you're with, but how do you sit there and say you're making a couple of $100,000 a year and you ain't working hard for it? And then people can't, you make $10 an hour, you really, that's like a paper route. You know, the best you could do is maybe sleep in the basement somewhere or in the garage, you know, and maybe have McDonald's every day. So that's not a living wage. And if you got a kid, you really screwed. You know, you got to have 2 or 3 jobs. But I can sit here and do really nothing, make a couple $100,000 for the rest of my life and tell you can't have a living wage.
Well, the problem with that is them voting for their own pay increase is a problem. It shouldn't happen. But at the same time, a living wage, California costs way more than Georgia to live in, and it costs way more in New York to live there than here. But even if you raise it to $15 minimum in California, that still ain't scratching the surface. It's not going to work in New York. It may be great for people here in Georgia, but then how many people would have to lose their job for them to be able to compensate and pay this person $15? You're going to have people working doubly hard, and you're going to have less people working. And that's where the breakdown comes at, because people don't understand that price of that cheeseburger is not going to be, or that Happy Meal is not going to be $5. It's going to be $15, and nobody's going to be able to afford to eat McDonald's, and nobody's going to be able to keep their job at McDonald's. So it's like it's a self-destroying issue.
I understand your point, and the argument against that is 2 things. On the one hand, if I pay my people more, that means I profit less. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because again, you asked the question, when is enough enough? If I'm paying my people more and I can't afford it, then I figure out how to be more efficient. Okay, yeah, that might mean give up some jobs. True. But instead of having everybody on the workforce starve to death, only half of them starve to death. The others have to go find a job. You know, I mean, you make a living wage, you can survive. The other half, go find another job. Yeah, I understand that's not necessarily the best thing, and I'm not advocating for that. But the problem is when you compare like a Walmart to another major corporation, and you see that of Walmart's professional staff, their executive staff, you got more billionaires there than you have in another company, and the other company's paying a living wage, and Walmart is paying something less than half of a living wage. So yeah, okay, I can understand who's back there complaining about don't change the living wage thing. But the reality again is, when is enough enough? How many billions do you really need to be happy?
I mean, and that's where it should be. You know, when we go and we shop in Walmart, we're paying into that. You know, if we got a problem with how, you know, Walmart is paying, you know, breaking up the money and paying their executives more than that, it's like, hey, look, I'm not going to shop at Walmart because they're not treating their people fair. And then if they can afford it, guess what? After a certain amount of time, they're going to be like, well, shoot, nobody's buying our stuff. we're losing money hand over fist. Well, we might need to increase our wages for our people so that we can get these customers back up in here,
Well,
because
that would have
money talks.
that would have to be pretty much a national effort, because what Walmart does, they'll just close the store.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, the people have to say, hey, this is a problem with this store. We're going to say, look, Walmart, this is not fair to anybody. I mean, it's not that you have to change your prices. If you're paying your staff billions of dollars, you got how many hundreds of thousands of employees? You can break that up a little bit, pay them enough. Because I'm sure like somebody in California, if they work at McDonald's, they might be making $20 an hour, even though they're working at McDonald's. But everything costs higher in California. I've never been to California, so I don't know for sure.
Mhm.
But the location is going to dictate how much they make. And so I understand they can't be across the board, but if you're making $1 billion in that market, you got a CEO over California's Walmart, and they're making $1 billion. Hey, there's enough money to pay those guys more. In New York, there's more money. In Georgia, if you're making $1 billion, then you definitely have enough money to pay these people more money because they're worth it. Because they're generating. When you work for a company, you're generating way more money than they're paying you.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand. They're like, well, they advertise a job for $14 an hour. I guess that's all it's worth. Nah, you're probably generating 10 times that, because your supervisor's getting paid. You got your PTO, you got your insurance, you got all that stuff that they have to cover. All that's coming off of your back. So, they have the money. It's just the way that they break it down and divvy it up. And I'm like, if they're paying them billions, that's it's not fair. It happens. It's not right, and it just needs to be addressed in the right manner.
Yeah, well, true, has to be addressed. Eventually, it'll be figured out. But then, how far down the road will we be? How bad off will we be? Because Walmart continued to operate until the last second, the way they operate. All right, so we've taken billions and billions, trillions of dollars out of the economy and split it up amongst our few good friends. And all of a sudden, people stop shopping at Walmart. Then, okay, now what? We got all the money. But anyway, we're just talking. But let's wrap this up so we can close out this week. And hopefully next week I'll be able to get to those points about the 3 spiritual laws, because I think they're very interesting and helpful. Okay.
Quick admin note. I should have did it earlier in the show. Apologies. If you would like to recommend, any of our viewers would like to recommend a topic for us to discuss, please, send us a message in the comment box or a chat window, and we'll take a look at it and see if we can squeeze it in.
Right. Okay. And if you'd like to appear on the show, send us a request. We'll send you the link. Hopefully, well, we're not going to let you come on unless you're going to bring something. So, yeah, get your game together. bring your A game, and let's see what you got. Okay. In the meantime, in between time, thank you. Thank God for you. And we'll see you next week, God willing, and the creek don't rise.
God bless.
God bless.